Welcome to the Simply for Life podcast. I'm Bethany, your host, a former diet and health nurse turned certified holistic nutritional consultant with over 16 years of expertise in the health and wellness space. I'm here with Bruce Sweeney, Simply for Life founder and integrative nutritionist with over 30 years of expertise. Join us on the Simply for Life journey as we explore nutrition, hormonal balance, and well-being for a healthier, longer life. Welcome to the show, Bruce.
Thank you, Bethany. Nice to see you today. And number 7. We're
Yeah.
getting there. We're moving up, right?
Yeah, we're warming up. So
Yeah.
today's topic is going to be all about customized nutrition and one size doesn't fit all. So my question to you, kind of, I guess, like being in the industry for such a long time, is can you sort of explain what customized nutrition really entails and why it's important to kind of move away from that one size fits all approach?
Yeah, and there's 20,000 comparison, and scientifically we hear more at our own biochemistry, our metabolism, microbiome, but let's get that on the side. First of all, why it's so important? Age. From adulthood and as we age gracefully. Now we know that more protein is more important than ever before. From the type of exercise you do, from what kind of medication you're using. If you're working night shift, just take night shift for example. When you're missing out on sleep, right, it has an impact on your insulin. You're more resistant to insulin, so it has an impact on the amount of carbohydrate you should be consuming. If you're one of those that enjoys to have a glass of wine every now and then, we know that we have to be more moderate about your carbohydrates in the morning because that impacts up to 50% of your insulin production, right? So again, you're starting to have issues with glucose. But if you look at simple things like having stress, your hormones are so important. And having a one size fit all, I want to be clear, can work for some people for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. But customization and personalized meal plan is not only a game changer for anybody applying those routes for improving their quality of life, but it's just common sense approach. This would be like everybody buying the same T-shirt. You have people that are smaller, taller, people who sweat more, people that will have different comparison in colors, right? So I think that the all size fit all, same size fit all, that's so 1970s, 80s, and that's way behind us. And it's not the way to look at nutrition at all.
It's funny that you say that because I'm very visual. So I was thinking of everyone walking around with the same T-shirt on, but how it would look on everybody. It would fit probably like 5% of people like perfectly, and everyone else would be like either really too tight or too big. And yes, it's very interesting to think about the one size doesn't fit all. I definitely worked in that industry where it was packaged that way, was that you will fit to what we've made, and it wasn't conducive. And like I said, the results that I saw was like literally 5% of people that came in could actually follow something like that. So, how do individual factors, like if we talk about sort of genetics, lifestyle, and like certain health condition over like the nutritional needs, how does that sort of affect different people? Like say, somebody goes on a one size fits program and they have like a genetic issue, they have, a certain health conditions, like what would you be seeing that would be kind of going wrong, I guess?
Yeah, and we got getting too technical because I'll point out about a gene testing after just to make a little bit more common sense. And first of all, let's just say that you're doing a food guide. I'm not going to name it, but a certain food guide. And you're type 1 diabetic, you're on the pump. You need to manage your blood glucose. You need to know how many grams of carbs are coming in or not. Or if you have gout, I think we're moving out of that. Maybe it's just purine. We're looking more at fructose now. So, you could be eating all kinds of fruits, and we adore fruits. But what if you're eating too many tropical fruits with fructose, or you're eating food that has an ingredient with high fructose corn syrup or corn sugar? And just the same thing if you have inflammation, right? If you have inflammation, we want to make sure that you have food, omega-3s, turmeric, certain spices that reduce inflammation. But another thing we forget to look at, there's a gene test you can do. It's called the PTC genes, right? And to make it
Okay.
longer, it's the TAS2R38. But really, it's a gene of about your taste buds and how you can taste bitter or not. There's some
Mm,
individuals, when we make a meal plan, they might like, oh, I don't like this. It doesn't taste as good. It could be the texture, but it could be their palate, how they're tasting food.
right.
While the next one, I absolutely love this. I love the flavor.
Hmm.
So there's so many things that mitigate on why we need to personalize and make a meal plan. Because how many times we've seen people beyond this that it's a texture. They don't like yogurt. They don't like cottage cheese, right? But a one size fit all will not compromise this because you feel obligated to eat it, and
Right.
oftentimes because you don't like this, you'll jump to some other choice, right? So extremely important.
Yeah, it made me think of when people usually ask like, is this bad for you? And you're like, well, not no, it's not like when you talked about the fruit, the tropical fruit, and they say, I heard, it's not good for you to eat this or this or this. And it's not to say like what's not good for you. It's just it may not be good for you because of the condition that you have. Like you said, like
Bingo.
insulin resistance or something along those lines. You talk about hypertension, eating red meat. Well, red meat, you need it because you need to make red blood cells, all that kind of stuff. And then
Homocysteine.
you're like, yes, you're correct. But, if you're not eating sort of grass fed, organic beef, things like that, like you're probably somebody that should stay away more so from that red meat, right? Just because of the health condition that you have. So I think that's sort of the explanation that maybe people are missing sometimes versus should I eat fruit? Should I eat meat? Like, for different sort of conditions that people have.
And
Um,
it's huge because you think this morning, it's funny, I was laughing. One of my clients was here, and I said, we're going to have to limit it. Now we know because she's been diagnosed with celiac. So we're going to have to eliminate your gluten and really dive in from your toothpaste. But here I'm at after our meeting today, you and I'm having pasta for lunch. I have no issues with
yeah,
gluten. I'm
yeah,
consuming gluten. And same thing as, what, I have hemochromatosis. So I do love red meat. And when I consume it, I make sure I have either turmeric or some calcium to make sure that I don't absorb as much iron, right? So while Claudine home, she can have red meat 2 or 3 times a week and she doesn't have to worry about her iron. It's
right.
really good for her. So yeah, one man's food might be another man's poison. That's
Exactly.
so important to know. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's where I think a lot of people get misinformed because it's sort of in the media, I guess it's generally put out there like this is not good for the mass people. And I think a lot of people think, oh, I need to try this new food. I think we talked about that last time, like I need to try this new quinoa, but again, it may not work well with your system. It may be a texture thing. And that's something I come across a lot as well, is the texture issue. Is it could be
Oof.
just the taste, like some, like even between my kids, like one of them absolutely loves like sour pickles, lemons, like, all that kind of stuff. And the other one, likes something completely different. So, it's very different in terms of even texture, and like the taste of things. Um, so you kind of talked a little bit about genetics. So what are some like common pitfalls people face when following sort of like a generic diet plan or fads, and how can sort of custom nutrition suggestion like address these issues, especially with like genetic stuff going on?
I don't recall, but I think I'll point him out. Walter Willett from Harvard Medical School. He's wrote a book on the colors, right? And eating a
Okay.
variety of colors, so forth, so on. But I remember at a conference, I'm pretty sure it is, but the likelihood of doing a one size fit all, right? Of failing, let's be clear on this, is 95% and plus. And I think it's
Yeah.
higher than that. And let me tell you right off from the cuff why. First of all, you're most likely going to get bored. You're eating the same thing over and over. Second of all, you have a lot of waste going on when you get bored because you're just eating the stuff you like first when you do your groceries and you're wasting a lot of food, so it becomes very expensive.
Hmm.
Third of all, you end up with a bad impression. How many times you and we've heard people or family members, oh, I'm not starting yet. It's so boring. And how do you do it? About 15 years ago, we invited the family over. And if they're listening to me, they'll remember that because we invited them over at our barn. We were talking, we just finished our barn. And our family, when they come over, they have this impression that we eat boiled chicken breasts with broiled broccoli and broiled rice, right?
Yeah.
So I said, no, come over. We're going to cook in the barn. Flynn and we're letting loose this weekend. We're not worrying about dieting. We're lying. We're not doing this. We're just going to let it loose. We're going to have ribs. We're going to have wings. We're going to cook pizza. We're going to have some steak. And when they came down on Sunday, I can't make this up. They're like, Bruce, it's good that you loosen up like that on food. You need to do that more often. I said, well, it was all SFL. You had pastured ribs. The wings were pastured. The
Hmm.
beef was grass finished. You have to stop thinking that we eat boring, but most of them, some of them and the family members, they come that they got into a one size fit all.
Yeah.
They eat plain. So you know what? We see a lot. Also, you've seen it when you eat the same thing over and over. You could be lacking nutrients. You could have digestive issues,
Yeah.
right? So that's why comparing a personalized meal plan to what your friend is telling you or what you read in a book, it's not sustainable. It's a good start.
Yeah.
Mind you, it's a good start. You're starting. Congratulations. But you need to have something that's definitely dialed into your needs. We're all different and unique from our palate to how we move and how we perceive food.
Definitely. It's interesting that you say, like, that's how you eat, because that's how we eat too. Like, we're very colorful, like lots of different foods. And you would think, oh, you can't eat pizza, burgers, pasta, and it's that mentality I think people have is, you're probably just gonna eat chicken breasts and salad all the time, or broccoli and rice, whatever. And I'm like, I hate that. Like, I
Oh,
don't
me
like
too. I couldn't do it. No way.
I can't be bored, and I have to have variety, and I'm very much about, like, what do I feel like having, or what should we make sort of ahead of time. But there's I love putting flavors into foods, and it's just interesting, and it's sad to hear, but like you said, when people sort of start that generic one size fits all plan, it works temporarily. People get into it, and they're sort of like, I can't. The one thing I hear is, I can't wait to be done,
Yep.
and that's where
Another
it's
2 weeks of this. Can't wait in 2 weeks. I'm done.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then they hit the plateau, and the calories as well. I've also noticing is that they're getting so low that they're like eating less than sometimes kids, and their
Yep.
weight came off fast to begin with, and then they hit a point where they're like, I can't lose weight anymore, but you can't cut any more calories.
Yeah.
Like, you're down to such a low point, and like you said, they're bored of the food. There's no variety. There's no like burgers, chicken, like
Oh,
fries,
geez.
anything, and
We had
it's
burgers 2 nights ago. I
yeah, and
mean,
that's what
good,
we do.
healthy.
We
But
make them
I'll
all
tell
from
you,
scratch.
yeah, and there's another thing too, Bethany. I think that people, when you really look into your clients or people in generally doing a one size fit alls and eating the same thing over and over, never mind the issues with weight loss, but I don't know how to best describe this. I'll say it in French. They end up in solitude. There are a lot of isolations because they feel that they're restricted because it's restrictive.
Hmm.
They don't want to go out with their peers or their friends' restaurants because of their
Yeah.
food choice is not available. But when you start having proper understanding that there's such a huge diversity, and what I teach my clients means, like, if you have a pizza from a restaurant, not to name any names, or a fast food pizza, how about we teach you to do nutrition transitions so you can still have your pizza and put the ingredients you like, good quality cheese, good quality bacon. You can
Hmm.
still have some amazing food. If you look at the diversity of different ethnicity of food, it's absolutely amazing the
Hmm.
reservoir of recipes we have. We're big into Indian and Italian food.
Yeah.
And I could serve anybody on the weekends Italian food home and they'll feel like they're cheating because they're so used to eat plain, boring, one size
Yeah.
fit all food.
Yeah, it takes, I think, it's just a bit of customization, like you said, when instead of sort of the pizza idea of going and getting like a deep dish pizza, and it's, makes you feel heavy and full, you could easily go and get something that's a thin crust and do it at home, put like pure tomato, sauce or something on it. But again, I think people are very like, oh, you can't have it. And it's sort of that, like,
Ah,
right away.
restriction.
It is restriction.
Yep.
And it sucks because it's a lot of the time people have these chronic conditions, and that kind of goes into my next question, where people think, well, I have a chronic condition, I have to follow what has been recommended to me, I guess. But how does sort of a custom nutrition plan help manage chronic conditions like the diabetes, hypertension, autoimmune disease, and effectively, help them stick to that?
Well, first and foremost, it's the education and understanding that not all food are created equal and not
Yeah.
having a fear of food. But if you're type 2 diabetic or if you have insulin resistance, for me, there's meal plan that will help you manage. I believe in reversal. I
Mm-hmm.
truly believe. So when you can start dialing in and understanding, proper amount of carbohydrates, the timing, and combining with, of course, protein and fats, or from a standpoint, again, like I was saying, if you have someone that who's low iron, anemic, so forth, so on, compared to me, we want to make sure they use cast iron to cook with, but also it's learning sort of cast iron, yes. If they have beet or red meat, that they consume pepper, high in vitamin C, helps
Yeah.
with absorption. So you're constantly looking at food in a different
Different way.
way.
Yeah.
And you're building your own personal set of tools that will make it more exciting to go out with your peers, have food. You can start looking at menus in a restaurant and understand what works for you or not,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to I'm restricted. Will it make a difference into my waistline or my scale?
Mm-hmm.
Because you start eventually to chase the feeling of feeling good, because that's what personalized nutrition will do, as opposed to chasing the scale. The scale over time with restriction and boring meal will slap you in the face and will say, okay, it's over, time to eat. And we all know what's the
Yeah.
outcome of this. While when you're in line and you have somebody to report to, not just the customizations, but somebody to answer you and make you understand why a certain shift is so important to you, as opposed to, just like I was describing earlier today, my client, like, it's over for her for gluten, while I'm having pasta for lunch today,
Yeah.
right? So there's a better understanding, as opposed to this is not fair, this is not working for me. I tried everything, it doesn't work. Yes, it does work when you personalize to your needs.
Exactly. I give sort of my own experience here because actually I do have insulin resistance myself. So, kind of what I do say to people, like, I love chocolate and I always have to make sure I pair it with a healthy fat. So, if I'm eating a little bit of chocolate, I would have it with nuts and seeds, a healthy fat. Same if I'm making a protein shake or something along those lines, I'm putting a little bit of like flax oil in there. Um, Low iron myself too. So again, whenever I eat, I always know I have to have like my meat with some type of vitamin C, broccoli or peppers or things like that, so I can absorb it. So it's just like knowing these things is making these small little tweaks and changes, right? And it doesn't mean to say that like you have to follow some like crazy thing, right?
And I'm still amazed. I mean, salt convey flavor. There's still people afraid of salt. We need salt; it's important for us, but there's still people under the mantra of zero salt. And many of these one size fit all will tell you to limit salt. And there's people that needs more salt than some other people too, right? Managing your electrolytes. So again, personalization to your condition is so important, and it gives you a peace of mind
Yes.
because you're aligning yourself in the right direction.
Can you think of sort of like a success story where you have a client that you've given them sort of a customized meal plan, something different than what they've normally done, and sort of how they've seen the difference in themselves?
Oh my God. I got a
Any?
once in a lifestyle experience.
Yeah.
And I hope they're listening, because they are member for life, avid followers. So this happened to be the year specific, 2012. So I got a newlywed couple, well, about 8 months couple. They're both engineers. She's Peruvian and he's from northern Canada. He's Innovate, kept his tradition. So when I started making the meal plan, it was more, I convinced them, let's try the Mediterranean diet. And I failed a little bit because I failed to ask them really more questions. At
Yeah.
that time, I was busy. More question about where they're from, what's their past history like. So we had the profile, we went through this. There was not really any issue. He had issues with his blood glucose, pre-diabetes, and
Okay.
blood pressure. He had more weight for her to lose. Her to was just more touch up, and she wants to start eating again. But of course, in the meal plan, I'm a big fan of fatty fish. That was good because he was already into high fat. It was in where he's from. It's basically a ketogenic diet, so to
Right.
speak. They don't do ketogenic diet, but they don't grow garden in northern Canada, and they don't
Yeah.
have fruits, and it costs a fortune.
Right.
And where she's from, it was kind of a flexi vegetarian, heavy on grain, right?
Okay.
And she would strive very well, but sooner or later, both of them were having complication doing the plan. And honest, loyal, bring their food journal. They're just like engineers. They were
Right.
right to the
Right.
T. But symptoms, gassy, issue with digestion, almost like a little bit of GERD, acid reflux.
Okay.
So it was one of those, because for most part, you can kind of make a meal plan for a couple and tweak a couple of things, but they can eat together at the table, so it's not too complicated. But this is where it was absolutely a game changer, because once we got him to start having more animal protein and more fats, his diet was not like a ketogenic diet, but it was over 50% fats, right? He
Okay.
started doing extremely well. Weight was coming up, mental clarity, no acid, no issues with digestion. And when I put her more on grain and lower her fats, and I'm a big believer in fats, and I had her around 22 to 23% fats. Usually it's about 30, 35. She started feeling better, less gassy, less bloating. So that just to tell you that how much we're different. This is a couple
Right.
living together, motivated to work at this together, but the meal plan, because of certain type of foods, was just not working. So then we got to personalize each meals. They cook their protein together, but the portions are clearly different.
Right.
Her amount of fats are much lower, or carbohydrates are much higher, and she does, and to this day still does. She consumes about 70% to 75% of her diet, all carbs
It's
and
interesting.
grains.
And that
Yep.
and that shows you where where even just like living together with somebody, like you need sort of a little bit more customization, and some people are going to have a little bit more or a little bit less, and again because of symptoms and things like that. So that's a great sort of story. um
Well, I've
yeah.
always said Claudine home, she gets away with bread. She likes bread. I look at a loaf of bread. If I eat the bread that Clinton does, I would look like a loaf of bread. I can guarantee
Oof,
you that.
yeah.
Oh yes, I have bread, but by geez, she brings baguettes on weekend, and by the end of the night, I'm looking for the baguette. It's gone.
Yeah.
A little bit of butter on it. No way I could get away with that. I have a piece or two of the baguette, and that's it for me,
Yeah.
right? So we're all different.
Yeah. How can somebody kind of start incorporating a plan for themselves? Like, are there any sort of considerations they should keep in mind, especially also with addressing like specific supplements as well in there?
Yeah. Well, I've never changed my tune. I think that a well balanced diet, and what I mean by diet is by eating whole foods, not being restricted with spice and everything. Rarely you need supplements, but the game has changed with stress, lifestyle,
Yeah.
sleep, medication, so forth, so on. I think the number one thing is to really, I cannot emphasize enough the importance of writing down your food journal when you're starting a personalized meal plan. Because even though I'm giving you a personalized meal plan, it doesn't mean that you're going to be following it to a T. What we see is people will take their personal food choice that they like the best or the
Yeah.
most, but by asking the right questions. And then if you have a client that just happens that, for example, their triglycerides through the roof, their triglyceride to HDL ratio is not good, HDL is low, higher on a scale of cardiovascular disease. And I'm trying to get them to have more fatty fish. They're afraid of sunshine. They have low vitamin D3, a little bit of depression. Well, by looking at the food plan, I'll say, well, at this point in time, you had fish once in the last 2 weeks, right? We need to really up your omega-3 fat. So then you start suggesting an omega-3 fat, and I'd like for you to take vitamin D3. But that's the beauty of working with you and I, because hands-on, by looking at food, we understand clearly. A lot of people will tell you, I eat healthy. I had this lady a couple of weeks ago, and she reached out to me, and she says, Bruce, you'll be so proud of me. I'm finally doing your smoothies. I said, great. She says, but I've gained 7 pounds. I don't know why. I said, can you send me the ingredient of the smoothie? Okay.
Yeah.
You'll get this right away. 1 cup of pineapple juice, 1 cup of orange juice, because she likes the blend.
Yeah.
1 banana.
Yeah.
You put a little bit of yogurt into it, a splash of honey. And then what was the other thing she had in there? It was, she had her psyllium husk, she had her whey protein. There was another carbs, but when I added up, I said, well, not even bodybuilders are trying to gain weight with have such a high sugary drink.
Yeah.
Because I said, you're drinking 2 glasses of pops. No, I don't drink pop. Yes, because the juice you're putting into your smoothie is like drinking pop because you're
Yeah.
drinking sugar, right? Get fruits, you get fiber. It's a whole different thing. So those are the things that people don't understand. And for her, because she was claiming a smoothie, she thought that would help her for a weight loss.
Right.
But there's millions of different ingredients you can put in a smoothie. I put smoothie with people who have cognitive issues. I do smoothies that stimulate your well-being and your mental health. I do smoothies that helps with digestion, and I do smoothies also that helps you with muscle building, right?
Right.
So all kinds of ingredient plays a whole different role because food is information to the body.
Right. Was she insulin resistant at all?
She doesn't know. I challenged her. I said, you need
Okay.
to do your HbA1c and then ask
Yeah.
for a fasting insulin.
Yeah.
So
So when you talked about the HDL, so that's you've got good cholesterol, bad cholesterol. So your HDL is your good cholesterol, your LDL is your negative cholesterol
well,
usually.
LDL now is more seen as a healthy one too. People live
Yeah.
longest, all have high LDL. I think the importance of LDL is with my clients now, I said, let's do an advanced testing and look at the particle size, which tell us you want to have a large buoyant LDL, which is friendly. The small particle one is more oxidized, get into your aligning of endothelial cells, cause inflammation. But I think cardiovascular disease as a whole is more C-reactive protein, homocysteine level. Again, all food that
Yeah.
has different influence, right? You look at everybody will tell you that certain antioxidants will help, especially in red wine, with your HDL level. Well, it's a longer story than that, but you can get the same antioxidants in pomegranate
Right.
and red delicious apples, right? Procyanidine, it's high in this and has really great impact on your heart health because heart health, when it comes to nutrition, is not the heart, it's a vascular disease.
Yes.
You think everybody, and I'm not putting the industry down because there's brilliant people out there, but everybody's talking about heart disease, but we don't hear about clogged heart. We hear about clogged arteries. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
vascular disease. And nutrition is absolutely brilliant to keep your arteries healthy and your vascular system, right?
Definitely. So, kind of beside the dietary changes, what other sort of aspects of a person's like personal life in terms of like their mental health, their physical well-being? Like, do they sort of go into nature therapy, breath work? What's something else that can sort of help them with a customized plan?
Well, anybody knows me, know I'm big fan of forest bathing, meditation. I'm a big fan of yoga nidra. But I think before we jump that, I think that first, before starting, one thing that you and I know hands-on is your environment. And first of all, before you start the journey, nailing down time for you.
Mm-hmm.
I was really talking to this well-to-do fitness coach. She's got a thriving business in the Maritimes. And we were talking about doing kind of she was doing a program, and I said, well, we're launching this program in the fall. It's called All About Me, about learning for women to put themselves on priority list, right? Because kids and everything else, just to
Right.
become a little bit more selfish about your health and giving you the tools. But navigating your week, make sure that you block time for you, blocking ahead of time, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
Sunday afternoon to prep your food meals, Tupperware, all that stuff. And then looking at your calendar and say, okay, I value myself and I'm no longer going to get what I tolerate. I'm going to change my story. And by doing that, I'm going to make sure that twice per week, I'm allowing some time to reflect, whether going in nature, go for a walk, and I'm really going to commit to that. Or maybe it's going to be social time, cook a recipe with my girlfriends because we get so much value out of this. We're talking, we're laughing, we're talking about old stories. Or it's making sure that on my morning routine when I'm extremely busy, I'm going to give myself a permission to slow it down, have coffee home, visualize my day. There's all kinds of things, but I think setting your mindset is the number one thing because if you don't set your mindset, it's hard to set your mindset to do meditation, exercise, or even cook. It starts with the mindset.
It does.
Really get a dial in yourself in. It's like business. You can say, I'm doing this project. It's great. But until your mindset is set for it, you're going to have obstacles and most likely you're not going to follow through.
Yeah, most people, I think it's honestly the mindset, and whether it's business or looking after yourself, starting something new, I think most people sort of have that energy to go for the first couple of weeks, and then they hit a roadblock and they're like, "Oh, this is hard. This is harder than I thought." And then they're like, "I give up," right? And then you kind of go back to that starting place all over again.
Yeah, and if you set your mindset, one thing I tell my clients and anybody's work with me, and they'll feel I'm repeating all the time, but it's always work. And I've learned this from a gentleman who's just wise with words. And when the client starts with me, I'd say, okay, I want you to set your mindset. But one of the things I want you to know is that when you'll be struggling and you find this hard, it will be your biggest opportunity to learn.
Right.
Instead of giving up of yourself, you and I are going to work together to find new ways and new strategies to keep moving forward. And once you do that, then you align yourself for long-term success, because that's what we want, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of people talking about sort of the the whole customization versus like the regular sort of guidance that everybody sort of follows. I think having that customization is really useful for people, and just knowing that, yeah, there are going to be hurdles along the way. I think a lot of people think, oh, it's just going to sort of be easy, and changing anything, I think for a lot of people in
So,
general, change for people,
yeah,
it can be
it's
really
tough.
hard. And a lot of people are sort of set in their way of like, well, I just want to do, what I normally do, but that also got you where you are today. So,
And
there's
I
something.
think if you can expect some failure, but failure are wins, right? Like we were talking early on, you and I, as an entrepreneur here in the Maritimes, people think that I've succeeded at everything, but I have an average now that it's about 10%. I'm 10% successful is because I keep trying and I don't give up. I come with new ideas with my business all the time, and there's out of 10 ideas, there's only one that works, and I'm okay because I
Yeah.
keep trying, and then, oh, this works, right? And every now and then I get lucky and it works on the second time. We're like, oh my God, we can't believe it.
Yeah.
But if you accept that your failure will be your biggest teacher,
Yeah.
nothing will stop you.
Yeah.
If you have a one size fit all and you fail, what are the other options? There's none.
Exactly. And there's
Working with
no.
us, we give you
Yeah.
options.
Exactly. And that's what I love about this too, is that, when the one size fits all and there is no other solution, it's kind of like there's no other way but okay,
Done.
let's just give up. Whereas I think the customization is like, okay, we hit exactly what we told you were going to hit, and then now we're going to pivot around and find another way. So I love that. Thank you so much, Bruce, for your words
More
of
welcome.
wisdom today and sharing everything with us. So, the links to the supplement store, some of the links for the supplements that Bruce was talking about today will be there in the Simply for Life shop. And both of our contact details there will be with the show notes. Thank you guys, listeners. And don't forget to share this episode with your family and friends. Stay tuned for more on the Simply for Life journey. In good health, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Bethany. Appreciate it.